We have chased the hype, had pre-ordered dreams, and booted up with hope, and some games didn't just miss the mark, they crashed like meteors, leaving behind smoking ruins of wasted potential. This isn't a hate fest, this is a cautionary tale, a brutal reckoning, the titles that dared to crush our thumbs and shatter our souls. 7 games, 7 epic fails. Get ready to relive the cringe, the rage, and the crushing realization you just spent good money on a digital nightmare. The video game industry had a big year in 2023 with the release of long-awaited games like Baldur's Gate 3, Street Fighter, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and many more. In fact, Nintendo had one of its best years in recent memory, with big first-party hits like Super Mario Bros. Wonder and Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which everyone was looking forward to. Naturally, there were also some poor game releases this year. These games just didn't live up to the hype and fell short of what fans were hoping for. It's not always the case that disappointing games are bad technically or in performance. Many of them could be fun or good all around. The reason these games are here is because they didn't quite hit the mark, either because they had a bad start or because they didn't have the features fans were looking for. Here's a list of the 7 worst games of 2023 in no particular order. At number 7 we have Atomic Heart. At first, Atomic Heart seemed like a spiritual follow-up to the BioShock game series, but it never quite met those high standards. The game takes place in an alternate reality Soviet Union in the 1950s, and players have to fight robotic and biological trials that have gone bad at a facility called 3826. Even though the idea sounds interesting, most players and reviewers agreed that it wasn't as good as BioShock. The fighting and growth systems were just not as good as they are in other games in the same genre. Even worse, the Xbox version Atomic Heart had technical and speed problems with its frame rate, as well as bugs in the way it worked in general. Another problem was the main character, Major Sergei, also known as P3, wasn't liked very much because he used a lot of bad language and had a lot of overused lines that seemed out of place or were just used too often. A lot of players also got bored with the open world parts that came between the more focused dungeon style levels. The open world felt like it was just there to add to the length of the game, with enemies that kept coming back, boring boss fights, and items that weren't always worth the time it took to get them. At number 6 we will talk about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Activision still makes a lot of money from the Call of Duty series, but Modern Warfare 3 had a much worse start than normal. Things didn't go well after fans got early access to the Modern Warfare 3 storyline. The game's launch was filled with excitement, with rumors of a fight between Task Force 141 and the return of the famous Modern Warfare foe, Vladimir Makarov. Unfortunately, the campaign disappointed the majority of fans because it used a lot of Warzone material and felt like filler. It was also very short, only 4 hours long. A lot of people didn't like the idea of open combat missions, which took away a lot of the fun and exciting set pieces that Call of Duty games are known for. When the game first came out, there were problems with spawn locations, in-game modes like Hardpoint, and a lack of popular game modes like Gunfight mode. However, things have not gone much better for online fans of the series. The 16 maps in the game aren't brand new, they're from Modern Warfare 2, which came out in 2011. Some people have found it hard to pay for the game, especially since the version that came out at launch felt more like an expansion than a full game. At number 5 comes City Skylines 2. People who played the first City Skylines thought that the sequel would have a lot of features right away, since it was a follow-up to a popular city building game that got a lot of updates and community support for years after it came out. Things quickly went wrong though when players found the game was missing basic things like airports. Even worse, changes that removed the Steam Workshop, which was a big part of the first game. This made players very unhappy. City Skylines 2 had major technical problems when it came out. For example, the game's creator, Colossal Order, confirmed that it wouldn't meet its ideal speed standard at launch. A lot of fans thought that City Skylines 2 tried to look more realistic too, but it hurts the game's general look and charm. The colors didn't stand out as much as they did in the first game, and some buildings and structures didn't look right at all if built on anything but flat ground. People who were looking forward to the platform release were also told the PlayStation Xbox versions would be released much later than planned, in spring of 2024. At number 4 we have Forspoken. When Forspoken was first revealed, Lunas Productions had a lot going for it because of the talented people working on it. Writers like Amy Hennig, Tom Stashwick, and Gary Whitta were on it, and Bear McCreary and Gary Shyman were working on music. Unfortunately, the game's development would go through a lot of rough spots, such as delays and other issues before it even came out. Whitta even said the story went through a lot of changes and cuts as it was being made, and in the end looked nothing like the original pitch. The warning signs were in the pre-release test, which let many players down by offering a dull and boring open world to explore. Other players didn't like Forspoken's dialogue, which they thought was at best cringy. While many critics gave the fighting and movement skills high marks, serious technical and performance issues negatively impacted the overall experience. A few months after release, Square Enix said it hadn't sold as well as they had hoped, and Luminous Productions would be brought back into the company to further strengthen other studios. At number 3 comes Lord of the Rings Gollum. Going into a game about the character Gollum was very exciting, but no one saw it coming to be as bad as it was. One of the things that makes people unhappy is the fact it takes advantage of one of the most famous intellectual properties, the Lord of the Rings, which has been turned into films, video games, and other things that have been big hits. Besides that, Lord of the Rings Gollum had a lot of technical and gameplay problems, and the graphics were worse than many older games. Technical problems like frame rate drops and character animations breaking for no apparent reason make the already poor graphics, camera seemingly working against the players, and awkward movements much worse. The gameplay is pretty simple, with sneaking and platforming features that don't work very well, makes even simple tasks hard. On top of the badly received game, disturbing information finally came to light about the studio. Unhealthy work atmosphere, workers working unpaid hours, and poor leadership, which ultimately led to the studio closing down. Of course, Lord of the Rings Gollum quickly became one of the worst games of 2023. At number 2, we have Mortal Kombat 1 Switch version. Mortal Kombat 1 has been a huge hit for NetherRealm Studios. It changes the story of the series in a lot of interesting and new ways. The Switch version, on the other hand, was very different from other versions. Players found the Switch version of Mortal Kombat had major technical and graphics problems. There were major problems with the level designs and character models not having enough detail, which took away all the real movements and lovely visual features that were present on other platforms. Players took screenshots of figures with eyes that didn't look right, models that didn't have any textures, weird visual problems like heads that float, bugs that broke movements, and load screens that were incredibly long. The last game in the series, Mortal Kombat 11, was a lot better than this one. It not only ran well on Switch, but it also looked better and got good reviews from both players and reviewers. Games are supposed to get better, not worse. At number 1, we will talk about Overwatch 2. On August 10, 2023, after almost a year, Overwatch 2 stopped being in early access. Along with it came Season 6, but even though the game was thought to be fully released, it lacked a number of important quality of life features, had a lot of problems with bugs with the competitive side of the game, and supported unfair microtransactions. For example, the release of Season 7 skins that were based on Diablo 4 caused a lot of controversy. Season 6 also included the much anticipated PvE modes, but they weren't quite what Blizzard promised. Fans were upset the parts of the mode were scaled down or taken away, leaving them feeling let down. If you enjoyed this journey through the less glamorous side of gaming, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more brutally honest content, and ring that notification bell so you never miss out on our next roasting session. Thanks for joining us on this roller coaster of regret.